Hello and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're dialing in from. My name's Marcus. I am a customer success manager here at Sendible, and welcome to this month's deep dive. Today, we're going to focus on community management in sort of the social media space and have a conversation, see what the differences are between community management versus social media management, for example, and kind of go through the do's and don'ts. But for those that have joined us here before, we don't get started without doing a bit of an icebreaker and without sort of introducing what you have in front of you. So just to let you know that to the right hand side, I think bottom right hand side, there is a few buttons and features you can do to access the chat and say hello. And also, so you can see Anne and Rebecca have said hello. So hi, Anne. Hi, Rebecca. And the icon next to the chat window is questions. If you have any questions that come up during today's session that is obviously related to community management, please add those questions into the questions tab, and we'll hopefully have some time at the end to cover your questions and take a look at some real life examples. Now, apart from just saying hello in the chat box, we do icebreakers. So I want you to type your answer to today's icebreaker in the chat box, please. And today's icebreaker is, if you could time travel, I know it's a bit far-fetched, bear with me. If you could time travel, would you travel forwards or would you travel backwards? My answer to this is I am definitely traveling backwards before there was too much happening in the world, before all of the mobiles and the internet, or maybe the birth of the internet, so I could sort of come up with a few ideas. Facebook. All right, excellent. So I see everyone's answers backwards, backwards, backwards. Oh, okay, no one wants to go forwards to see what Cybernet does. All right, Kelly, she wants to she wants to go forwards, and Deanne. Oh, okay, okay. There was a backwards crew and our forwards crew. Any reasons why you'd want to go forward or backwards? Let's get some reasoning in the chat as well. See what people are thinking. And whilst I keep an eye on some of your answers, let me share my screen. This is
I
like
personally miss good old times, so I want to go
yeah,
back. When you're younger,
in
energetic,
childhood, but what about if you go back and you are the same age you are now? That means you're
wiser.
for yeah, you'd be wiser.
Wiser, yeah.
Lots of people want to go back to being young. Yeah, I think I wouldn't mind that too. All right, so I am about to share my screen with you all. So you should see my face turn a bit blue, and you should see a social media community management slide. TV shows are still getting better. Do you think so? I'm not sure, Casey, about that, especially with all the strikes that are happening at the moment. But if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Okay, I'll keep an eye on those. It's some really good answers. And as I said, I want to start the conversation talking about, community managers and basically what's the difference between a community manager and a social media manager. Now, some companies have both, some companies only have one, but what's the main difference? So I've got a few slides just to break them down. So let's first start with social media managers, as the core of today's session is going to be looking at community managers. So social media managers, they are sort of mainly focused on social media efforts. They're focusing on planning and executing strategies and campaigns. And I have a nice slide here that kind of looks at the different roles of a social media manager. So as we know, account management, sort of making sure that their accounts for Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn are all set for purpose and are all delivering the messages that those networks should be receiving. They also do lots of planning and strategic thinking. So they will be planning content for maybe a month, 2 months in advance. Same with their campaigns, and they're really sort of thinking about what lands on the social media first, what the brand or the agency should be telling their audience. They do lots of audits and evaluation over the content that has gone out, so they can sort of go back to step two and use that to sort of rethink content and campaigns. They do lots of reporting and analytics and report their social media efforts to, let's say, the senior leadership team, and once again filter it back to content and campaign planning. They need to be responsible for listening and monitoring as well, and maybe by using listening and monitoring, which is a feature of the Sendible dashboard, they can come up with ideas or get a feel of what campaigns and what content strategy would work. Team training, they can take their findings from the last 2 steps and train their team on what they've learned. You report back what's been working and sort of keep doing the things that are working, and maybe make some changes in areas that weren't as successful. And then crisis response. We're going to talk about this a couple of times because it's not purely the role of the social media manager, but it's definitely for something that they should be aware of on how to engage with the audience in times of crisis. Okay, let's move on. So social media managers, as a sort of overview, they create the social media content. Okay, they post as behalf of the brand. Okay, and they build and execute the brand's social media strategies, and they focus on monitoring the results in order to continuously improve all of the above. How does that differ to community managers? So let's take a look at community managers and their main focus. Now, the main focus of a community manager is to create and foster the community around an agency or a brand or your clients. So with that said, it's more, we're going to focus on their social media efforts, but a community manager can engage with the community outside of social media. So just something to be aware of. You've got emails, blogs, videos, and there's always other ways that a community manager can engage with the audience. And it's all about sort of responding back to the your audience. So if someone reaches out, leaves a comment in a specific media, then the community manager should respond like for like. Sorry, I'm just looking at the comments, and Gia says she's not seeing the slides change. They should be changing. Is anyone else having that issue? We should be able to see a slide with the title where. Sorry,
I'm actually seeing it. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right. In that case, Gia, would you mind maybe logging out of the webinar and logging back in, and hopefully it will show? Okay, but yeah, they should be changing. I only see role of the social media man. Okay, what I'll do then, sorry guys, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to try and share my screen again. Hopefully that would make it work for everyone. Apologies about that. Let's try again. Okay, so you should all be able to see my screen. You should see where social media communities managers work. And there's a list starting from social media platforms all the way down to other. Hopefully that has worked. Yeah. Okay. Now you see this one. Let's hope you see the next one, which is up here. And it's going to be the key community manager tasks. Oh, login out and in worked. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, I hope everyone can see now. So what are the main tasks of a community manager? So similar to social media manager, but very different. They respond rather than create the content. They're responding to the audience on social media. So the audience that are seeing that are sending comments or sending you messages, is the community manager's job to respond. They don't post as the brand. Community managers are actually posting as the individual, you know, as that someone that's trying to sort of help the audience and troubleshoot any issues. They build and execute a community strategy as opposed to a social media strategy. So how they talk, when they should respond to users, etc. And they're focusing more on the engagement and interactions of the social media managers' posts, as opposed to sort of the reach and the click-through rates, etc. It's more sort of the likes and the comments that the community manager is mainly focusing on. Okay, oops, make sure I don't miss anything here. Okay, so bear with me. So we've got replying to comments on social media. This is some of the tasks that a community manager would do. So when I say replying to comments, they need to ensure that the audience, the community are getting the right information, and the brand voice is kept up with as well. So they should always kind of think of the tone you're using. Does it match the brand's tone? That's really important for your community manager to master. They will also be responsible with interacting with customers internally. So this can include responding to client queries and actually providing useful resources for inbound queries as well. So whether it's information packs or links to an FAQ page, the community manager should always be in a place to share that content with the audience. Okay, so very similar is sharing resources to answer those questions. So a significant part of the CM's job description is sharing content that is going to be helpful. So on the right hand side here, I've got an example from Asana, who actually respond directly to users with helpful resources. So ways to sort of log in and learn more and sort of engage more with that brand. They're also responsible for gathering target audience feedback. So every brand and client are going to have a target audience, and it's very important that the community manager can identify that target audience, but also listen and be able to sort of gather feedback from that audience, which they can then share internally. Okay, so very similar to how the social media manager would sort of train the internal team based off their findings. This is a community manager sort of learning and gathering feedback that they can then share with the social media manager. And they also helped to tailor content to the audience needs. So by using the feature above where you are sort of learning, then they can take their learnings and help tailor content specifically off the back of what they've learned. Okay, I do apologize that some of you are not seeing the slides. I'm just sort of keeping an eye on the chat. What will happen though is this is being recorded and the slides will be sent to you afterwards. So I'll do my best to explain what I'm seeing for those that can't see the slides, but do rest assured they will be sent out afterwards. So another task of the community manager is being able to track performance. So they should regularly take note of metrics and identify, new trends and new patterns. Once again, a very similar task to what the social media manager does, but the social media manager is kind of more interested in other types of metrics. So as mentioned before, click-through rates, reach, engagement, those are the type of things that the social media manager is more interested in. The community manager, we are looking for things like likes and shares and comments. So we are tracking and doing analytics as both roles, but in slightly different ways and looking at slightly different metrics. All right, another important one is to be able to build relationships with the right people. And I say right people, mainly influencers, because influencers themselves will have their own audience for this community to sort of tap into, or for the brand and the agency to tap into. So if you can build a great relationship with an influencer, then you're likely going to get yourself in front of their audience, which would then help increase your own. Right, and I did say we'd come back to the crisis talks. So in a time of crisis, and not necessarily the big ones like a pandemic and COVID, but it could be anything. Your brand might publish something where the audience disagree. Okay, so if you've got a lot of comments, sort of negative comments on a certain post or a campaign, it's very important for your community manager to listen and to be ready to step in. These days, as you can see here, it's kind of considered disrespectful to not respond or to stay quiet in times of bad news. So customers and audiences, we sort of respect seeing the community manager in the comments and actively discussing things with the audience and the community. Okay, so one of the worst things you can do is actually stay silent or delete something that didn't go well. Even if, you know, they're not your core audience, that type of activity will still kind of get out and kind of start to give a brand a bad reputation if they're not willing to engage with news, whether it's positive or negative. Okay, so a few best practices just to summarize the role of a community manager. So, what are those best practices? The first one is to be able to respond in a timely manner. If someone in your community has reached out with a question, then that's great. That's potentially a great piece of engagement, but it is very important to make sure you respond to them. And I say in a timely manner because some social networks do put rules on how long you can wait before you reply to a, let's say, direct message. So, for example, Facebook. If a user sends you a direct message on Facebook, you only have 24 hours to reply to that direct message. Otherwise, you would need to wait again for that user to start the engagement for you to reply. Okay, so you do have a small window of opportunity to engage back with your community via different platforms. Will have different rules, but the one that comes up a lot in my inbox is Facebook, and why messages weren't received after they were sent. Community managers should also be ready to set community rules and guidelines. So that could be, you know, how long before a reply, like an SLA, or how many responses should be sent to a user before we change, you know, before we go into direct messages or email or another way of communicating. It's important to be authentic. You are representing the brand or the client, but it's still important to sort of be human and be authentic. It's also important to listen to your community. Okay, so as mentioned, if your community are all kind of saying the same thing, take time to listen and maybe, you know, communicate that back to your social media manager, leadership team, and see if there's anything that you can share from your community to help the business learn and grow. You want to show appreciation to your community and to your followers. If they're taking time to sort of follow and leave engagements on your post, on your page, it's really good to appreciate that post, reply back, nurture that community, and maybe even reward some of your top community members with, or it could be with anything. It could be a discount to some of your products or service, or just sort of mentioning or sharing their post. You know, a lot of things can be rewarding to your community. You want to maintain your brand voice at all times. So this is something I mentioned earlier. It's really important to stay on brand. So even when you're handling what could be a complex scenario, always think of the tone of voice you're using and does it match your brands. And then lastly in this area is to explore new ways to engage your community. It doesn't always have to be sort of likes or comments. It could be other ways. You could send your community sort of video updates or just different ways of using the media and social media channels. So those are our best practices. Anne also has a few slides to go through, which is kind of the what not to do as a community manager. Yeah. I'm going to stop sharing on my side, and hopefully when Anne shares,
thank you,
we will be able to overcome some of the issues we had with those slides. And once again,
hopefully,
fingers crossed.
Can you see my screen?
I can.
We'll just it says what not to do as a community manager. Hopefully everyone sees it.
Excellent.
Okay, well, thank you, Marcus, for that. And I just want to add more things, but this is more of what not to do as a community manager. So definitely number one there, not monitoring social platforms. So this is quite obvious. Your number one job is to engage your customers, and the number one task is to monitor the social media accounts that you manage. Monitoring allows your community managers to just, as what Marcus mentioned, promptly respond to comments, messages, mentions, engaging with your customers in real time. By monitoring mentions of the brand, you can address negative sentiments, respond to complaints, and also rectify issues before they kind of escalate. So this proactive approach helps in maintaining a positive brand reputation. You don't want to ignore direct messages. DMs often contain private inquiries or complaints. Ignoring those can lead to very unhappy customers, and they can potentially do more harm when they decide to post publicly because their private messages were ignored. So take that opportunity to address their concerns even before it blows up. And then timely responses. As mentioned, these are crucial in community management, so avoid making customers wait too long for a reply. It can escalate their frustrations, of course. So some concerns may be, time sensitive. So show them how you value them as your customers by addressing the concerns right off the bat, just as soon as you can. Okay, so this is a classic example of a business operating 24/7. So as you can see, it's British Airways. Now, in the 8 hours between the first tweet and the response from the airlines, this garnered about 76,000 Twitter users. This has been seen by those bunch of Twitter users. So I know not all businesses operate 24/7, but still a timely response is important. It's paramount now. It just shows how much you value your customers. So let's just jump on to your laptop, your desktop, and see what needs your attention and reply to them. Next would be automation done the wrong way. While automation might be beneficial in some situations, relying primarily on automatic responses can make your conversations feel impersonal and robotic. So please ensure that you strive to give genuine human interaction to your customers. And of course, customers often have unique questions or issues that require tailored responses. You can use generic scripts, but they may not fully address their concerns. So leaving them unsatisfied and feeling unheard. Scripted or generic responses might initially appear efficient, but they come at a cost, of course. Genuine human interaction, customer satisfaction, and also your brand reputation. So community managers should strive to strike a balance between efficiency and personalized communication, just to build that stronger relationship with the audience and also to foster positive brand image. Now, look at this automated responses from a pizza place. I'm not going to name it. So the responses were quite irrelevant to the questions. So they're asking about if, the delivery on Christmas, if they do that. So look at the response. It's automated. So you can do better. You can still do the automation, but you can do better by improving the flow of your automation. Like maybe, as far as I know, for Facebook, you can customize your responses. You can add options like if their concern is about their orders, status, delivery, personal updates or whatnot. So you can pretty much customize it. Okay, next is how not to deal with your with bad comments, negative comments, or reviews. So this is the dreaded negative comments or reviews on your page. Now, do not think of deleting them unless necessary. For instance, if they're not really relevant to your brand or they're just triggering some members of your community, probably can do that. But if these comments or reviews are based on their personal experience from what they receive from your company, either as a product or as a service, the best way is to make sure that you are dealing with them head on. So ignoring or deleting negative comments can lead to further frustration from users. Instead, respond promptly and professionally, showing that you value feedback and you are willing to address your concerns. So you should always take the situation as an opportunity to show the public how you handle such situation. If the public sees how you you handle such comments or issues, and you're showing top-notch after-sales service by not deleting comments and simply addressing them the best way you could, that actually speaks volume of how you value your customers. So just take a deep breath. Don't take it personal. Pen a thoughtful, authentic, and personalized response, and then take them offline as soon as possible. So that means encourage them to continue the conversation via direct message. As tell them you'll be asking some customer info, so let's head over. I'll send you a DM, or you send us a direct message, and we'll work on a good solution for you. The last one would be not learning from feedback. So you should always pay attention to recurring issues, and of course, use the feedback to make necessary improvements. This way, you won't be getting the exact same rant and comments from your customers, because you have to do a bit of root cause analysis of what's causing it. If you're not fixing what needs to be fixed, then you'll always keep getting the same reviews or feedback. So yeah, I guess that's it. I have some resources here, but I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Thank you for that, Anne. There's a few minutes left, and I have seen a few questions come through. So let's do our best to go through the questions for those that have time and give you some answers. Right. So the first question was from Eleanor, and Eleanor asked, would they reply, as in would the community managers reply as themselves as a community manager? The answer is they are replying as a human, but 9 times out of 10, it will be from the brand's handle. You're just talking in the brand's tone of voice, but as a human. So they know there's a real person at the end and not a bot. Rebecca has asked, what's the best form of gathering feedback in your opinion? That's a great question, Rebecca. What I think is the community manager will be using different mediums. It could be social media, it could be email, it could be a number of things. The most important thing is that they are in the practice of having a central place to put that feedback. So it could be a different answer depending on the organization. I know here at Sendible, we have lots of feedback coming in a lot of different avenues, and we have a central database that product team and marketing team will manage, so we can contribute feedback to that central area.
I think surveys, emails, I think those are the most common ones, most effective ones. Yeah. That's what we also.
But as long as you can put the feedback in a central place where you can then learn and spot the trends and anything that you need to take action on. Rebecca's asked another question, and my answer may be similar. Let's find out. What's the best way to target an audience influencer for engagement? That is a question that I may need to think about how to give you a great answer, but I guess it's kind of knowing who, what influencers are you trying to target? So there are certain websites, I can't remember the name of them, where you can actually search for influencers and reach out to them. So each influencer will be an influencer for a certain reason, because they are, popular in a certain industry. So it's all about knowing your industry and knowing who is that viral influencer in your industry. Okay, and then you can leave comments on their posts and sort of nurture that influencer and hopefully build a relationship with them. Okay, and the goal of that is that then they can perhaps endorse your product, your brand, and then that's a whole new audience for you to speak with. Eleanor has asked, do you think it's important for a business to have a community manager? Yes, I do. I think it's becoming more and more important these days, as most activity is done online and on social media. Us as customers and a community, we kind of expect businesses to be responsive to us. We expect someone to be on the other line to reply to our queries. The example Anne gave from British Airways, that customer expected 24 hours response, and I know that's quite unrealistic, but in a business that operates 24 hours, there's definitely some logic behind that demand.
They have higher expectations than that.
Yeah. I was last week was stuck in an airport for half a day, and it was overnight, so there wasn't anyone for me to really reach out to until the next morning, which by that time wasn't really good enough. So I didn't tweet or put a public distress out, but if I thought there was someone that would be there to listen, I probably would have. Okay, and then Beth asks, if more than 24-hour passes before you respond, is it appropriate to respond to the message with apologies for the delayed response? Yes, but bear in mind, in the example I gave, if you was trying to respond using Facebook, that message would not be delivered. Facebook has a timer that when a user sends you a direct message, you have 24 hours to reply. Otherwise, you will not be able to reply. So yes, if it is a delayed response, it's great to acknowledge the delay and apologize for it. Maybe let them know what your working hours are to manage expectations for next time. But if it's past 24 hours, Facebook especially, you can't reply. So it wouldn't work. Okay, there's a couple more things in the chat. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything. If there is any other questions, please, now's the time.
There's a question from Karen from the chat. A bit controversial.
What would be right pay for community matter? I can't answer that, Karen. It's all depends on your region, the expertise of that community manager, wages in your region, etc. So tough question for me to ask, but you can definitely check things like Glassdoor, which kind of give you an idea of wage packages for different roles. I'm sure there's resources out there to kind of help you answer that question. No comment on the Glassdoor. Just a few more. There's lots of comments coming in, actually. Rebecca has a message for Beth. It was a recommendation to me to use the verbiage, thank you for your patience, when, yeah. And I agree, Rebecca, that's definitely a good practice. Oh, Karen, I said Glassdoor for some reason. Okay. Oh, Glassdoor. Sorry, was that a question? I thought it was what you referred to it as. Glassdoor. It is a way for people to kind of share their experiences at different companies, different job roles, and it's a great way to kind of get a rough idea what the going salary is for any given job role. Definitely check it out. It is a great site, and you're welcome. Okay, guys, listen, I hope you found today's session useful. Interesting how many of us want to actually go back in time. I didn't think that was going to be the trend. But no, I hope it's great. I hope you now see the importance for community management and the difference between community management and a social media manager. Awesome. Just reading the comments, it looks like people have had a useful session here. So I will take that as and thank you for joining. Wish you a great day or weekend. And I look forward to seeing you again in August's webinar. Keep an eye on your emails as the announcement is due to come out any day now. Thank you and take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.